This session is going to cover building your first notification bot using Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. A little bit about myself. My name is Garry Trinder. I'm a senior cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, focused on Microsoft 365. Basically, I'll leave this slide in there. You should be able to take a look. And if you want to contact me, ask questions, feel free to reach out. More than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Quickly, just to cover what I'm going to go through. So we'll cover what is a notification bot, quickly cover Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, and then I'll actually go through, show you the steps of how you can create your first bot, and then run it and see how it works as well. And I'll jump in and just show you how this bot works, what packages it's using SDK-wise, and then I'll leave you with some resources to find out more information. But hopefully at the end of this, you should be able to have a good idea of what a notification bot is and go and build one in your own tenant. So let's get started then. So what is a notification bot? Well, a notification bot really is a great way of being able to extend Microsoft Teams with the ability to send proactive notifications into various Microsoft Teams locations, either that as a personal app that's installed in the user context, or a team channel, or a chat, or a group chat as well. So a great use case for this would be, you are wanting to react to something that's happening in an external system. When that happens, you want to send a message into a certain location so people can see it, format that, maybe as an adaptive card with some buttons to get some immediate action on that. So that really is what a notification bot is. So we're going to go through and use Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code to build our notification bot. So Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, if you're not aware, is a extension that's available in the marketplace that you can install into Visual Studio Code, and it gives you the ability to create and debug and run and publish Teams apps. So it comes with lots of project templates. Notification bot is one that we're going to look at, but it's got many others as well. You may have heard Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio as well. That is a enhancement for the Visual Studio application. That is based on .NET. I'm not going to go through that today. We can cover that in another call. So if you're really interested in that, please let me know in the chat. Today it's Visual Studio Code, so we're going to be in JavaScript and TypeScript as we build our bot. So with that, let's get rid of the slides and let's build. So I will share my screen. Okay, so I've opened Visual Studio Code already. If I didn't have Teams Toolkit installed, it's very easy to install. So I can search for Teams Toolkit. Very easy, just click install. When you've installed it, you get the Teams Toolkit icon in the sidebar, but when you click on it, you get a few options. You can create your new Teams app. So let's do that. So we want to create a new Teams app. We do have samples. I won't go into it now, but something that you might want to look into for some examples of apps that have already been built. So we're going to choose a notification bot. You can see there's other types in here that cover command bots, tabs, SharePoint framework tabs as well, other bots. So there's a lot of capabilities in Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code for building other types of apps, but let's use the notification bot template for now. We've got 4 different options that we can choose. We have the first option is a Restify server implementation, which is a HTTP trigger. So this is you sending a HTTP request to your bot, and that will trigger a message to go into the different locations in Microsoft Teams where you've installed it. The next 3 are all Azure function based. We've got the HTTP trigger, which again is the same as the first option. It's just got a different implementation. We've got the timer trigger, which runs on a schedule. And the third option is you can have both. So when you create that project, you can have messages going in there every 30 seconds or ad hoc when you need it. So let's choose that one. We got the option for JavaScript and TypeScript. I'm going to go for TypeScript, and we want to choose a location where we want to create our project. So let's just call it community call. Hit enter, and that starts the scaffolding. So this is Teams Toolkit now generating our project. It's fairly quick. It's actually done and completed. So what I'm going to go do now is we'll just run through kind of the folders that are in here, just so you've got an idea of what has actually been created for us. We've got the .fx folder, which holds various configuration files. These are configuration files for Azure, local development. These are placeholder values that will get injected into the app manifest. So you can come in here and you can create your own properties. Get to that bit a little bit later. Project settings, which is some internal code for Teams Toolkit. You shouldn't need to go into there, but this is kind of how everything is controlled. VS Code, these are the debug profiles. So this is when we hit F5. Here's basically where all the magic happens for Toolkit, where we do a lot of activities and pre-provisioning to allow you to basically get your bot up and running as fast as possible, and I'll go into more detail when I actually do that later. We have our bot folder, so this is where our source code is, and we have a templates folder as well. So this templates folder provides us with a app manifest and also bicep templates for deploying and provisioning to Azure. There is a nice little feature. If we open the Teams Toolkit side panel, you can see that we've got lots of different options in here. We've got an edit manifest file. So if you don't know which file you need to look for, do the updates, click that button. It opens up the manifest, and we can see in here that we've got a Teams app manifest with placeholder values in there that get injected in when we actually run our app. And the toolkit basically handles all of that complexity for us, like the valid domains, which will change as we are running the bot through development. So that's how you can get to your manifest. A couple of other things to point out is I've already installed Teams Toolkit and I've authenticated my account against my Microsoft 365 tenant. So that's already showing as signed in, and also that side loading is enabled. That needs to be enabled on the tenant for us to be able to develop against it. So if you've got a sandbox, that's done for you automatically. But if you're using another type of tenant, then you might need to go into your admin settings and just enable that side loading for this to work. Okay, let's look at the bot code because that's what everyone is interested in. So here we have our bot as an Azure function. So we've got three functions: a message handler, the HTTP trigger, and the timer trigger that have already been created. So if you're familiar with using Azure functions, this should be again pretty familiar. We've got the definition files in here, which tells us that this is a HTTP trigger. Again, this is HTTP, the different endpoints, and that we've got our timer trigger as well that is by default running every 30 seconds. So the code for the two triggers, the HTTP trigger and the timer trigger, are in here. So this is where our logic is going to live. And you can see it's just a standard Azure function that is being invoked here. And we've got some helpers from the Teams Toolkit that basically simplifies working with the bot framework. So that there is a layer of abstraction that you don't have to basically handle all sorts of different events that you would have to have done using the bot framework SDK. So this, just to quickly cap what this actually does, this code, when it is run, it will go and get all the locations of where the bot has been installed, and it will loop through all of those targets, and it will send an adaptive card. So if we just quickly take a look at that, we've got an adaptive card already created for us. So we can see that we have a model for card data, which describes the shape of our data. We have a template, which is this notification default JSON file, and then we have the data that we can inject into that at runtime to render dynamic values. If I quickly look at the adaptive card, you can see that we're using the templating placeholders in there, and we have an action as well to open a URL. One folder just to call out, so we have this internal folder. You shouldn't need to come into here, but it's good to have an idea of what lives in here. The initialize file is where our bot is actually instantiated. So this is the wrapper that the Teams FX SDK provides us with. So this provides a nice, easy contract to set our config, so our bot IDs and our bot passwords, as well as various other configurations as well. So it's a nice way of being able to see, okay, where are the values that have been passed into my bot. So time to run this project. I'm not going to do that on this one because there's a number of checks that are going to happen, including an npm install, and we don't have that long to wait. So I've already gone and run this bot and already done that install. So to run this bot is very simple. We can go to the debug pane and we can choose the profile for the browser that we want. So I'm going to use Edge and I'm going to hit run. And we can see here, if I just expand this, you can see that there's a number of prerequisite checks that are happening. It's a bit fast, but essentially what Toolkit's doing is it's checking the node versions, it's checking that you've authenticated with your 365 account, it's checking that you've got Azure Functions core tools installed, and that npm is there as well. Additionally, what it's also doing is it's going off to the bot framework and it's provisioning a bot in the service for us. So that's where the ID and the password comes from. That's injected into our config. When Teams Toolkit has done its job, it will open up the browser and it will open up our bot. Now, this bot has two triggers. So it has the timer trigger and it also has the HTTP trigger as well. So we've actually seen, we've already got a message sent in. The timer trigger has already kicked in. This is the side loading. I mentioned before, we've got different places that we can install this app, team, chat, or actually a meeting. If you just click add, that will install the app as a personal app into the user context. So I'm just going to do that for now. And we should see that we've got our timer triggered event that has come through. That adaptive card has been sent. Now, I mentioned that there's a HTTP trigger. If I go back to Visual Studio Code, we can see that there's an endpoint that has been stood up for us, this API notification endpoint. If I come over to PowerShell, you can invoke the service. So just send it a post request, which I will do now, and I'll get a 200 response. And if I go back to my app that is running, we can see that that message has appeared in Teams in our chat. So by basically just simply creating the project, running it, Teams Toolkit has handled everything for us that we need to get started, provided us with the two ways to send the messages into Teams. I'm quickly going to just jump back to the code. So in this example here, we've got the HTTP triggered notification. We're actually getting some context back that says, oh, okay, this is a person context. I'm just going to show you the code in the trigger, just so you can see how you can then further develop this. So if I go back to code, let's go to the source file and we go to the HTTP trigger. Let's minimize this. So we can see here that we get a type back from the target. So if we just take a quick look at the target, so this is essentially our bot installation, we've got access to various methods and properties. So we have access to an adapter. So this is the underlying bot framework adapter. So like I mentioned, the SDK is providing that abstraction, but if you need to go to the lower level, you can access the adapter through this way. We have some helper functions to get the channels in a particular team, get team details, the members for the chat or the team, helpers for sending an adaptive card or sending messages as well as text, and also accessing the conversation reference as well. Another way of accessing that underlying API that's provided by the bot framework as well. So I'm going to leave that there because we're rushed for time. But as you can see, if you're going through this, take a look at the comments that are actually in the file as well, and you can see how you can write the if statements to only run and send cards if your bot's running in the context of a group or a group chat or even a channel as well. Hopefully you'll be able to enhance this bot to do what you want it to do. I'm quickly now just going to jump back to the slides. Okay, so just to summarize, so notification bots, great for sending proactive messages into different Teams locations. 2, Toolkit provides the quickest way to get started developing Teams apps. I've shown a notification bot, but there's plenty of different scenarios that you can build with Teams Toolkit. And Teams FX there is providing a layer of abstraction to simplify working with the bot framework, which is really, really useful. Some resources to learn a little bit more. Please check out the docs for Teams Toolkit and also Teams FX SDK as well. Thank you very much for listening. Apologies, I've tried to get through this as quick as possible. You'll be able to watch it back on the catch up and probably slow it down a bit. Thank you very much. If any questions, put them into the chat and I will definitely do my best to answer them. And Vesa, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Garry. Really cool stuff, and not worry about it. Unfortunately, the time slots are 15 minutes, but really cool stuff. And you do have that awesome blog post available as well.